Welcome back to True Crime XX. Today, we're unraveling some of the most mysterious unsolved cases. Get ready for stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's dive in. James Pearson, 52, was a respected businessman and philanthropist. His custom furniture company, Pearson & Sons, had been a staple of the Doylestown economy for decades. Known for his charm and generosity, James was often seen at local charity events, always with a warm smile and an open checkbook. Standing at 6'2" with salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes, cut an impressive figure in the community. His wife, Elizabeth Pearson, 48, was equally admired as a dedicated elementary school teacher and active member of the Doylestown Presbyterian Church. With her warm brown eyes and gentle demeanor, Elizabeth was beloved by her students and fellow parishioners alike. The couple's seemingly perfect life was completed by Elizabeth's son from a previous marriage, Cadell Walsh, 23. Cadell had lived with the Pearsons since he was 12, following the death of his biological father in a car accident. James had taken on the role of stepfather with enthusiasm, and to all outward appearances, family was a model of suburban success. Cadell, with his mother's kind eyes and his late father's athletic build, was considered the golden boy of Doylestown, excelling in both academics and sports during his high school years. However, beneath the surface of their idyllic life, a storm was brewing. Unbeknownst to their friends and neighbors, James and Cadell had been engaged in a secret affair for the past 2 years. The illicit relationship had begun shortly after Cadell's 21st birthday, during a family vacation to the Poconos. What started as a drunken encounter quickly spiraled into a passionate and dangerous liaison. The affair was fraught with guilt, desire, and fear of discovery. James, torn between his love for his wife and his forbidden feelings for Cadell, struggled with depression and anxiety. He began to withdraw from social events and spent more time at his workshop, claiming to be working on special projects. His once steady hands now often trembled when he worked on his intricate furniture design, physical manifestation of his inner turmoil. Elizabeth, concerned about her husband's change in behavior, attributed it to stress from work and tried to be supportive. She would often bring him dinner in the workshop, her footsteps hesitant as she approached, unsure of the reception she would receive. The distance growing between them was palpable, but Elizabeth clung to the hope that it was just a phase, a rough patch they would eventually overcome. Cadell, meanwhile, grappled with conflicting emotions of his own. He had always looked up to James as a father figure, and the shift in their relationship left him confused and ashamed. Yet, he couldn't deny the intensity of his feelings. The young man began to distance himself from his friends and dropped out of his classes at Bucks County Community College, citing personal reason. His once bright future seemed to dim as he became more entangled in the web of secrecy and forbidden love. As months passed, the secret became increasingly difficult to keep. Close calls and near discoveries added to the tension between James and Cadell. They argued more frequently, their whispered fights often taking place in the garage or basement, away from Elizabeth's ears. The strain began to show on all 3 family members, with Elizabeth growing increasingly worried about the deteriorating relationships in her home. James started drinking more heavily, often retiring to his study with a bottle of scotch after dinner. The scent of alcohol on his breath became a common occurrence, and Elizabeth found herself avoiding his kisses. The taste of whiskey, a bitter reminder of the growing divide between them. Cadell, too, turned to alcohol to numb his guilt and confusion, often sneaking drinks from James's liquor cabinet when the house was quiet. The community of Doylestown, oblivious to the turmoil within the Pearson household, continued to hold the family in high regard. James's company sponsored local sports teams and donated generously to the town's historical society. Elizabeth organized bake sales for the school and volunteered at the local animal shelter. Cadell, despite his inner struggles, maintained a facade of normalcy, occasionally helping out at community events to keep up appearances. As summer turned to fall, the tension in the Pearson home reached a breaking point. James became increasingly paranoid, convinced that someone in town suspected their secret. He would spend hours poring over local gossip blogs and social media, searching for any hint that their illicit relationship had been discovered. Cadell, feeling suffocated by the secrecy and guilt, began to push for a resolution, threatening to confess everything to his mother. On the night of October 15, 2023, fragile equilibrium finally shattered. Elizabeth had gone to bed early, complaining of a migraine. James and Cadell found themselves alone in the kitchen, tension thick in the air. Ticking of the antique grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to echo the pounding of their hearts as they faced each other across the kitchen island. What exactly transpired in those fateful hours remains unclear, but the results were catastrophic. Neighbors would later report hearing muffled shouts and the sound of breaking glass. But in a town where privacy was highly valued, no one thought to investigate, call the authorities. The following morning, Elizabeth woke to an unnaturally quiet house. Calling out for James and Cadell and receiving no response, she made her way downstairs, the silence broken only by the creak of the old wooden stairs beneath her feet. The scene that greeted her in the kitchen would haunt her for the rest of her life. James lay on the floor, his body battered and bloodied. A heavy marble cutting board, a wedding gift from years ago, lay nearby, stained with blood. The walls and countertops were spattered with crimson, testament to the violence that had unfolded. Shards of broken glass from the shattered back door littered on the floor, cruel diamonds. Cadell was nowhere to be found. Elizabeth's anguished screams alerted the neighbors, and soon the quiet street was filled with the wail of sirens. Detective Sarah Chen of the Doylestown Police Department arrived on the scene, her experienced eyes taking in every detail of the gruesome tableau. At 38, Detective Chen had seen her fair share of violent crimes, but the brutality of this scene, coupled with the respected status of the Pearson family, made her stomach churn. As the investigation unfolded, the community of Doylestown reeled from shock. How could such a horrific act occur in their peaceful town? The Pearsons had always seemed so normal, so happy. Neighbors and friends struggled to reconcile the James they knew, the man who had built a beautiful gazebo for the town square just last year, with the broken body on the kitchen floor. Detective Chen and her team worked tirelessly, piecing together the events of that fatal night. Forensic evidence painted a picture of violent struggle. James had fought for his life, his defensive wounds indicating he had tried to fend off his attacker. The murder weapon, the marble cutting board, bore both James's blood and Cadell's fingerprint. Traces of DNA under James's fingernails matched Cadell's profile, suggesting a fierce physical altercation. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a web of secrets that had been hidden beneath the Pearson family's perfect facade. Interviews with close friends and colleagues revealed that James had been behaving erratically in recent months. He had become paranoid, often checking his phone and jumping at unexpected noises. Some had attributed this to work stress, but in hindsight, it painted a picture of a man living in constant fear of discovery. James's secretary, a middle-aged woman named Margaret, reluctantly shared that she had noticed strange tension between James and Cadell during the young man's infrequent visits to the office. She described hushed arguments and meaningful glances that seemed out of place for a father and son. Margaret had dismissed her observations, not wanting to think ill of her kind employer, but now she was consumed with guilt, wondering if she could have prevented the tragedy by speaking up sooner. Cadell's friends, when questioned, described a young man who had become increasingly withdrawn and moody. He had stopped attending social gatherings and was often seen having hushed phone conversations, abruptly ending them when others approached. One friend recalled Cadell mentioning feeling trapped, but had assumed it was related to typical young adult struggles with identity and purpose. The breakthrough in the case came when detectives discovered a hidden email account on James's computer. The emails exchanged between James and Cadell laid bare the extent of their relationship, filled with passionate declarations of love alongside expressions of guilt and fear. The most recent emails hinted at growing discord, with Cadell threatening to expose their secret if James didn't leave Elizabeth. As the investigation progressed, a manhunt for Cadell ensued. His face was plastered across news channels and social media, shocking those who had known him as a quiet, polite young man. The search extended beyond Doylestown, with authorities in neighboring states on high alert. 5 days after the murder, Cadell was found in a rundown motel on the outskirts of Atlantic City, New Jersey. He had attempted to disguise his appearance, dyeing his hair black and growing a scraggly beard, but was recognized by an alert motel clerk who had seen his picture on the news. When police burst into his room, they found Cadell huddled in a corner, a shell of the young man he had once been. The arrest and subsequent confession sent shockwaves through Doylestown. Cadell admitted to killing James in a fit of rage and despair, detailing the toxic nature of their relationship and the emotional turmoil that had led to that fatal night. His words painted a picture of a young man manipulated and confused, trapped in a situation he felt he couldn't escape. For Elizabeth Pearson, the revelations were devastating. The woman who had lost her husband now also lost her son to the justice system. She struggled to comprehend how the two men she loved most in the world could have betrayed her so profoundly. Friends rallied around her, but Elizabeth found herself isolated by grief and shame, unable to face the pitying looks and whispered gossip that now followed her everywhere she went. The trial of Cadell Walsh became a media sensation, drawing attention from across the country. The sordid details of the affair between stepfather and stepson captivated and repulsed the public in equal measure. Ethical debates raged about the nature of consent and power dynamics in such relationships. Courtroom was packed every day, with journalists and curious onlookers vying for seats to witness the unfolding drama. Cadell's defense team, led by the charismatic attorney Daniel Goldstein, argued for leniency, citing emotional manipulation and the trauma of the inappropriate relationship. They painted James as a predator who had taken advantage of his stepson's vulnerability, presenting evidence of James's past indiscretions and suggesting a pattern of inappropriate behavior. The prosecution, headed by the stern and meticulous District Attorney Evelyn Hawthorne, focused on the brutality of the crime, arguing that regardless of the circumstances, Cadell had chosen to take a life. They presented forensic evidence detailing the savage nature of the attack, emphasizing that James had suffered greatly in his final moments. Elizabeth, torn between her love for her son and her sense of betrayal, provided emotional testimony that left the courtroom in tears. She spoke of her confusion and pain, of the happy family she thought she had, and of the shattered dreams left in the wake of the tragedy. Her words resonated with many, highlighting the far-reaching consequences of secrets and lies. After weeks of emotional testimony and heated legal arguments, the jury found Cadell guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, a verdict that left both sides of the courtroom in tears. As Cadell was led away, his eyes met Elizabeth's for a brief moment, a look of anguish and regret passing between them. It was a look that spoke volumes. The love, betrayal, and the irreparable damage done to their once close relationship. The aftermath of the trial left Doylestown changed. Community that had once prided itself on its close-knit nature now grappled with the knowledge that such dark secrets could exist behind closed doors. Neighbors became more wary, more inclined to question what might be happening in the houses around them. The sense of trust that had once been a hallmark of small-town life was shaken to its core. Elizabeth Pearson, unable to bear the whispers and pitying looks, eventually sold the family home and moved away, seeking anonymity and a chance to rebuild her shattered life. The house on Maple Street stood empty for months, a silent reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. Potential buyers were put off by its grim history, and it became something of a local ghost case, with children daring each other to approach its overgrown lawn and shuttered windows. In the years that followed, the case of James Pearson and Cadell Walsh became a cautionary tale, studied in criminology classes and dissected on true crime podcasts. It sparked discussions about family dynamics, the dangers of secret relationships, and the devastating consequences of betrayal. Psychologists and sociologists pointed to the case as an example of the complex interplay between sexuality, power, and family structure. For those who had known the Pearsons, the tragedy served as a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving. The perfect family they had admired from afar had been built on a foundation of lies and forbidden desires. It left them questioning how well they truly knew their friends and neighbors, and many found themselves reevaluating their own relationships and secrets. The impact of the case extended beyond Doylestown. LGBTQ+ advocacy groups used it to highlight the importance of support systems for individuals struggling with their sexuality, especially in conservative communities where coming out might not feel like a safe option. They emphasized the need for education and acceptance to prevent such tragic outcomes. Mental health professionals pointed to the case as an example of the destructive power of secrets and the importance of seeking help when dealing with complex emotional situations. Therapists reported an increase in clients coming forward with their own stories of forbidden love and family secret, inspired by the Pearson case to seek help before their situation spiraled out of control. As for Cadell, his life behind bars became a journey of self-reflection and regret. He engaged in therapy and education programs, trying to understand the choices that had led him to this point. His case became a powerful testimonial used in youth outreach programs, warning of the dangers of engaging in inappropriate relationships and the importance of setting boundaries. In prison, Cadell found an outlet in writing, penning a memoir that detailed his experiences and the events leading up to that fateful night. The book, published under a pseudonym, became a controversial bestseller, with some praising its raw honesty, while others condemned it as an attempt to profit from tragedy. Elizabeth Pearson's path to healing was long and difficult. She sought therapy to deal with the dual traumas of losing her husband and the betrayal by both him and her son. Over time, she found purpose in advocating for victims of family violence and in supporting other women whose lives had been upended by unexpected tragedies. She started a support group for those affected by family secrets and betrayals, providing a safe space for people to share their stories and find healing. The town of Doylestown slowly healed, but the scars remained. The case had shaken their sense of security and community, forcing them to confront the reality that even in the most picturesque of places, darkness can lurk. Annual community meetings now included discussions on recognizing signs of abuse and the importance of reaching out to those who might be struggling. Local schools implemented new programs focused on healthy relationships and communication, hoping to prevent future tragedies by giving young people the tools to navigate complex emotional situations. The Doylestown Presbyterian Church, where the Pearsons had once been faithful members, held a series of sermons on forgiveness and healing, attempting to help the community process its collective grief and shock. Years later, as new families moved into town and younger generations grew up, the case of the Pearsons became something of a local legend. Parents used it as a way to discuss difficult topics with their children, emphasizing the importance of honesty and the dangers of keeping secret. The case was immortalized in a true crime novel by a local author, which brought a new wave of attention to Doylestown and reignited discussions about the tragedy. The Pearson family home, once a symbol of suburban success, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy. Despite several renovations and new owners, locals still referred to it as the Pearson House, unable to shake the association, the events that had transpired there. Some even claimed that on quiet nights, they could hear the echoes of arguments and pleas coming from within its walls, though most dismissed such talk as overactive imaginations fueled by the lingering trauma of the event. In the legal world, the Pearson case became a reference point in discussions about the complexities of family law and criminal justice. Law schools used it as a case study, examining the intersection of domestic violence, sexual abuse, and murder. The case also sparked debates about age of consent laws and the definition of incest, with some arguing for stricter legislation to prevent similar situations. The media's handling of the case came under scrutiny as well, Ethicists and journalists debated the fine line between public interest and sensationalism, questioning whether the extensive coverage had been necessary or exploitative. Some argued that the intense focus on the sordid details of the Pearson family's private life had done more harm than good, while others maintained that the case highlighted important societal issues, deserved public discourse. In the aftermath, the Pearson name became synonymous with tragedy in Doylestown. Elizabeth Pearson, despite her efforts to move on and find peace, could never fully escape the shadow cast by the scandal. Whenever she would venture into town, she would be met with averted eyes and hushed whispers, a constant reminder of the devastation that had befallen her family. Years passed, and the intensity of the shock began to fade. The lessons remained. In Doylestown and beyond, people learned to look beyond the surface, to reach out to those in need, and to confront uncomfortable truths rather than bury them. The tragedy had exposed the darkness that can exist in the human heart, but it also illuminated the resilience of a community and the enduring hope for healing and understanding. As the decades ticked by, the case of the Pearsons became more than just a sensational crime. It became a catalyst for change, prompting discussions about mental health, family dynamics, and the importance of creating safe spaces for individuals to express their true selves. In this way, from the ashes of tragedy, some measure of positive change emerged. Small consolation in the face of lives forever altered by one fateful night in October. For Cadell, the weight of his actions never lessened, even as the years passed. In prison, he found solace in the written word, pouring his heart and soul into his memoir. The book, while controversial, became a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked desires and the devastating consequences of giving in to temptation. Cadell's case, told with raw honesty and vulnerability, touched the lives of countless readers, many of whom reached out to him, offering forgiveness and understanding. As Cadell neared the end of his sentence, parole board faced a difficult decision. Some argued that he deserved a second chance, that the trauma of his upbringing and the manipulation he had endured warranted leniency. Others, however, remained staunchly opposed, insisting that the brutality of his crime was unforgivable. In the end, after much deliberation, the board granted Cadell parole, citing his exemplary behavior and the progress he had made in addressing the underlying issues that had led to his downfall. Elizabeth Pearson was present at the parole hearing, her heart pounding with a mix of emotion. She had long since forgiven her son, but the scars of that fateful night remained. As Cadell emerged from the prison gates, Elizabeth embraced him, tears streaming down both their faces. It was a bittersweet reunion, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of unconditional love. Cadell's reintegration into society was not without its challenges. The stigma of his crime followed him, and he faced numerous obstacles in finding employment and rebuilding his life. Yet, with the support of his mother and a network of advocates who believed in the possibility of redemption, Cadell slowly began to piece together a new future, one marked by purpose and a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life. In the town of Doylestown, Pearson case remained a topic of discussion, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. The house on Maple Street, once a source of sorrow, was eventually purchased by a young couple who set about restoring its former grandeur. Determined to create new memories within its walls, the community watched with a mix of curiosity and cautious optimism, hoping that the house could finally shed its haunting past. As the years advanced, the case of the Pearsons faded from the immediate public consciousness, but its impact lingered. In classrooms, in support groups, and in the quiet reflections of those who had lived through the tragedy, the lessons of the case continued to resonate. It served as a poignant reminder that even in the most idyllic of settings, the human heart can harbor deep, destructive secrets, and that the price of uncovering them may be more than anyone is prepared to pay. In the end, the case of James Pearson and Cadell Walsh became a testament to the fragility of the human condition, a stark reminder that the veneer of perfection can so easily shatter, revealing the complex web of emotions and choices that lie beneath. It was a tragedy that had ripped apart a family and shaken a community. But in its wake, it had also sown the seeds of understanding, empathy, and the enduring hope that even the most broken can find a path to redemption. Thank you for joining us on this harrowing journey into the heart of one of the most tragic and complex cases we've ever covered. The case of James Pearson and Cadell Walsh is a chilling reminder that even the most seemingly perfect lives can hide deep and destructive secrets. The tragic events that unfolded in the Pearson household serve as a stark illustration of the devastating consequences of secrecy, guilt, and forbidden desires. We hope that today's episode has shed light on the intricate and often painful dynamics that can occur within families. This case not only highlights the dark side of human nature, but also underscores the importance of mental health awareness, open communication, and the need for support systems for those who find themselves in emotionally turbulent situations. As we unravel these true crime stories, our goal is not merely to recount the gruesome details of the crimes, but to delve deeper into the psychological and social factors that contribute to such tragedy. The case of the Pearsons is a powerful testament to the fact that beneath the surface of any seemingly idyllic life, there can be a complex web of emotions, decisions, and consequences that ultimately shape our destiny. This episode also reminds us of the importance of empathy and understanding. It challenges us to look beyond the headlines and the sensational details to understand the human beings at the center of these stories. While the actions of James and Cadell were undoubtedly wrong, they were also the result of deep-seated emotional struggles, confusion, and a lack of support. In understanding their case, we can perhaps gain a better understanding of the pressures and conflicts that many people face in their own lives. We encourage you to think about the themes explored in this case: the dangers of keeping secrets, complexities of family relationships, and the need for open, honest communication. If there's one takeaway from this tragic tale, it's that secrets have a way of festering and growing until they explode in ways that can have devastating consequences. The tragedy that befell the Pearson family could have been avoided if those involved had sought help or confided in someone they trusted. We also want to emphasize the importance of mental health support. If you or someone you know is struggling with emotions or situations that feel overwhelming, please seek help. There are resources and professionals available who can offer guidance and support. No one should have to navigate these challenges alone. As we conclude this episode, we extend our deepest sympathies to those affected by this tragedy. Pearson family, their friends, and the entire Doylestown community were forever changed by the events of that fateful night. The scars left behind are a testament to the far-reaching impact of the choices we make and the secrets we keep. We also want to acknowledge the difficult work done by law enforcement, legal professionals, and mental health experts who continue to unravel these complex cases and bring justice to those who have been wrong. Their dedication and expertise are vital in helping us understand the full scope of these tragedies and in preventing similar events from occurring in the future. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope these stories brought you some thrilling and intense moments. If you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit like, share the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss another unsolved mystery. Leave a comment below about which case intrigued you the most, and feel free to suggest any cases you'd like me to cover in the future. See you in the next video.